A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Thanks so much for tuning in to another edition of Bearing Arms Cam and Company. My name is Cam Edwards. It is good to have you with us once again. Coming up on the program in just a matter of moments, Evan Todd is going to be with us. Evan is a survivor of the Columbine attack. He is a resident of Colorado, and he was in Aurora, Colorado last night when Beto O'Rourke came to town for what was billed as a town hall meeting on gun control. And Evan Todd got a chance to ask Beto O'Rourke a question or two, actually one big question. Evan noted that the Columbine attack took place during the Clinton gun ban. In fact, it was squarely in the middle of the Clinton gun ban. 5 years after that semi-auto ban went into effect, that is when the attack at Columbine occurred. And so the question that Evan Todd had for Beto O'Rourke was simply, look, these killers didn't use the guns that you want to ban. They didn't use an AR-15. They didn't use an AK-47. So would you consider banning all semi-automatic firearms? And Beto said, in essence, I'd consider it. Said he's open to the idea of banning all semi-automatic firearms. I have to say, I think that this may have been the moment that Beto's gun control plans jumped the shark. You know, you already have Democrats who are complaining that, you know, Beto's gumming up the works. We're trying to get background checks passed, and then Beto's out there talking about, hell yeah, we're coming for your guns. And then Beto doubles down. Maybe it won't just be the, 17 million or so AR-15s and AK-47s. I think it's probably more in this country that I want to ban. I want to demand that you turn over in exchange for some cash. Maybe we'll just do that for all semi-automatic firearms. That'd be the bulk of the guns in this country, by the way. Everything from pistols to shotguns to rifles. The vast majority of firearms in this country would be semi-automatic. I think semi-automatic handguns, by far, the most commonly owned firearm in America. And Beto just said he's open to the idea of banning it. Now, maybe he'll walk that back. Maybe he'll say, I thought about it, and I just, it's really too hard. I don't think we should do that. But at this point, you never know. Because every day, Beto O'Rourke seems to have a new idea on how to remove guns from the hands of Americans who currently legally own them. So I had the opportunity to sit down with Evan Todd this morning, just a few hours after he asked Beto O'Rourke that question. And I wanted to ask Evan, A, why he wanted to ask the particular question of Beto O'Rourke, B, his views on gun control, because Evan Todd is not a gun control supporter, despite the characterization by some in the media that he was and is a gun control supporter. No, he is not. He's actually very much an advocate for the right to keep and bear arms. It was a fascinating conversation. I appreciate Evan spending some time with us this morning. Take a look and a listen. Evan, it's so good talking with you, man. Thanks for coming on the program today.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Glad to be here.
Absolutely. So let's talk about this town hall in Aurora, Colorado. What made you decide that you wanted to go out and hear what Beto O'Rourke had to say and maybe ask him a question or two?
Well, I mean, a lot of it stems from just what he's been saying in the last, few weeks since the last Democratic debate and his planned proposal for the mandatory gun buybacks, and it just, the logic behind it didn't make sense, and I wanted to see how far he wanted to go with it.
So you did have the opportunity to ask a question, and you brought up the fact that you are a Columbine survivor, that you were wounded in that attack, and that this happened during the quote-unquote assault weapons ban that was in place between 1994 and 2004. And so what did you ask Beto O'Rourke?
Well, I mean, I just pointed out that, the two weapons that he's been calling for, the AR-15 and the AK-47, weren't used at Columbine, and mass shootings a majority of them aren't used. They don't use the AR or the AK. So, I was just asking, do you plan to ban other weapons? How, are you going to go after all semi-automatics? And I never got a clear answer, but he did answer questions later on to press that showed what his intentions were, and that is to go after every semi-automatic.
Yeah, he certainly didn't say, no, Evan, that would be ridiculous. We'd be talking about, hundreds of millions of firearms in the hands of tens of millions of legal gun owners. That's just crazy talk. No, I mean, he expressed openness to this, right? He said, we'll consider this. Now, did you all actually exchange information afterwards?
I did give them my information to one of the campaign workers, and they gave me their cards that I'm going to be contacting him today to see if we can set up a time to talk about his plan.
What is it that you think Beto O'Rourke doesn't get about his calls for banning firearms and a compensated confiscation program?
Well, there's a lot there. He doesn't get that guns save lives. He doesn't get that this is private property. He doesn't get that the role that he is campaigning and the position that he is campaigning to fill. It is his job and his duty to uphold and protect the rights of the Constitution. And every angle that he's going at it, he's violating that oath that he would take just in his campaign. So, there's a lot that I would like to ask him about, and why he thinks he has that right to take people's private, personal property. That is a means of protection. That is a means of protecting freedom, liberty, and not only that, it has all the other auxiliary benefits of hunting and sport shooting. And I completely 100% disagree with what he's doing.
Which is interesting, because a lot of the media coverage that I saw on Thursday evening, the portrayal was that you were asking for this ban, not that you were asking to know his position on this ban, but that, a Columbine survivor was asking Beto, why don't you ban all of these guns?
Yeah, well, I was asking him why, where he draws the line. And that was the question I really wanted to ask. I wasn't there to state my opinion. I'm not the one running for president on that, on that stage. I wanted his position to be out there and known. I was doing him a favor to help him spread his message of what he believes. And I did ask a simple, short question that left it up to him. But no, I was not advocating for any bans of any guns.
Do you, I'm just curious, do you get that a lot, that there's this just sort of assumption that because you are a Columbine survivor that you must support gun control?
Yeah, I get that a lot. And it's funny because I did hear people talking and saying, well, you as an Evan didn't disclose that you're a gun rights activist, and you asked your question. And I said, why does the audience matter? The answer should be the answer, no matter who you're talking to. But I have had that too in cases past. I've even flown out to California to do interview on television. Them assuming that I was a gun, control viewpoint minded person because of what I went through. And when I got out there, they pulled me off stage and canceled the interview because they found out my positions on what I believed.
That is amazing. So they wanted you because they wanted your story and they thought you would be a compelling guest. They just didn't agree with your ideas, and so all of a sudden, it's just not going to work out, Evan. That's amazing.
Yeah, got cut short real quick after I said something.
So what is your answer when somebody asks, as I'm about to, why aren't you a gun control supporter? Why is it that you could, survive an attack like that and then still support the right to keep and bear arms?
Yeah, and it's not an easy path. I questioned firearms right after Columbine happened and what I went through and what I saw. And I did look at, is this the issue? Is this a problem? And what I came to realize was that I had firearms in my home. I had access to firearms, but I wasn't murdering anybody. And it was this small little anecdotal path that I started to discover more and more. And I thought, you know what? It's not these guns. I knew a lot of people at Columbine. Columbine and the Littleton area is full of hunters and Second Amendment supporters. There were guns out there, but no one was killing kids. And so I looked at society and was wondering what changed. And really that's when I began to really dig in and started to form the position that I now hold. And it's really the hearts of men of, there is evil in this world, and unfortunately you can't legislate evil.
No, but you can legislate, I think, self-defense and preparedness. And this is something that is very near and dear to your heart. And again, it's interesting because you start to see how all of these narratives get constructed, right? If you're the survivor of an attack, well, you must support gun control. No? Okay. Well, then you must be in favor of, ensuring that there are gun-free zones. Well, no, that's not the case either. In fact, you're actually working with a group called Bullets Both Ways that is all, well, I'll let you describe and define what this organization is all about.
Yeah, Bullets Both Ways, it's a bold American brand. We're an apparel and decor company that we sell merchandise, shirts, hats up on bulletsbothways.com that, and through the sale of our merchandise, we're able to sponsor fireman medical training for school and church staff throughout the country. We work locally here in Colorado with a great organization, Faster Colorado, with Laura Carno. And she's gotten a good number of teachers here in Colorado protecting the schools. And so it is a labor of love, and we're doing great things. And I am fortunate to be where I'm at. So.
Do you think that the media, you talked about your own personal experience. We know that there's not a monolithic response when somebody is the victim or a survivor of one of these types of attacks. You can talk to, guys like Andrew Pollock and Ryan Petty, who lost their children in the attack at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas, and they too don't believe that banning guns is the answer. J.T. Lewis, who lost his brother at Sandy Hook, who's now running for state senate in Connecticut, has talked about how gun control isn't the answer. And yet it seems to me like the media, you talked about, again, what happened to you when you went out to California. It seems like the media, once you've said, hey, listen, I'm not on board this gun control bandwagon, the media all of a sudden finds voices like yours less compelling, don't they?
Yeah, no, they do, and I've experienced that for 20 years where interviews have either been cut short, dismissed, canceled, or completely taken out of context. So it's something that I am glad that there is social media now, because when I first started to try and get my message out there 20 years ago, Facebook, Twitter, those platforms didn't exist. So it was very hard. And not only that, blogs were very, very, very new. You had to be pretty technical. So yeah, I really didn't have a voice, if you will, for a long time. I spoke where I could, did fundraisers for Boy Scouts and Red Cross and other organizations, and but I knew eventually that the media can't control the narrative forever. The truth does come out, and so I am I'm grateful that there's programs like yours that do stand up and represent and allow voices like mine to be heard. Now Andrew Pollock and all the rest of us. So.
Well, like I said, I'm glad that voices like yours are out there and that you could come on the program. I hope that you actually get a chance to talk with Beto O'Rourke. Full disclosure, I've actually been exchanging some emails with one of his campaign staffers as well for the last couple of weeks, hoping to get Beto O'Rourke here on Cam and Company. I don't know that will happen. I kind of doubt it, but I hope that the two of you are able to sit down and talk. And I'll be honest with you, Evan. I don't expect that you're going to change Beto O'Rourke's mind, but yeah. I do believe that if he's willing to listen, you can definitely give him some food for thought.
Yeah. No, I agree. And that's really all we can do. And not only that, help get his message out there, because I think his message needs to be heard from the American people, and so that they can make a decision on it.
Absolutely. Evan Todd, Bullets Both Ways. What's the website for Bullets Both Ways, Evan?
Yeah, it's bulletsbothways.com, and all our merchandise is up for sale on there, and every purchase goes to help sponsor firearm and medical training. So we appreciate everything people can do, and standing up and representing.
Absolutely. Well, we're going to be highlighting Bullets Both Ways in a future interview as well, because I'd love to have you back and have some of the other folks there with Bullets Both Ways on the program as well. But again, thank you for speaking up, for using your voice, and for joining us here on Cam & Company today.
Thank you, sir.
Now, we are continuing to watch what's going on Capitol Hill, although today I think is probably the first day in a week or more that we don't anticipate or don't have any expectation that perhaps today's the day that we'll hear from President Trump on any gun control ideas. The president said yesterday that he's taking it slow and want to make sure they get it right. And I would not anticipate learning anything from the White House in terms of what, if any, gun control policies they'll be supporting until next week at the earliest. Now, also coming up next week, just put a pin in this, the House Judiciary Committee is slated to mark up and vote on a sweeping semi-auto ban that is also coupled with a magazine ban as well. So we'll have all kinds of news and information on that tomorrow. One more item that I do want to get to before we get to our hero of the day, our deal of the day, and our good guy of the day. Seen a lot of folks opining, including one Robert Francis O'Rourke, about Colt deciding to get out of the civilian black rifle market, at least for the time being. And it seems to me like if you don't know a lot about the gun issue, you're really excited about this. You see this as some sort of victory. Aha, Colt's going to stop making AR-15s for civilians. That means we won. That does not mean that gun control advocates won. As a matter of fact, Colt CEO made it very clear in the statement yesterday that Colt still supports the Second Amendment. They didn't call for any sort of ban. And the folks in the industry that I've talked to over the past 24 hours or so have all been unanimous in their opinions that this is strictly a financial decision for Colt. And basically, Colt has struggled to find a place in the market for its black rifles, even though, Colt was the originator of the AR-15, at least for civilian sales back in the 1960s. Over the past, decades or more, Colt has had some financial difficulties. They've gone into bankruptcy a couple of times. And they've been pursuing this sort of dual strategy of going after government contracts and also trying to do civilian sales. But when the government contracts come in, the civilian production ends up dropping. And so from what I understand, this was a decision of, okay, look, let's commit to our government contracts. Let's try to get ourselves in, or not get ourselves, but let's try to stay in a good financial position. And they feel like they were really struggling to find a place in the market. The Colt AR-15s priced above, let's say, a Smith & Wesson, M&P 15, priced closer to a Daniel Defense rifle, but the market, they were really struggling to find their market share. And we are at a point in time where there are a lot of AR manufacturers, and there are a lot of ARs and AR style rifles that are, out there in folks' inventory. A couple of the folks I talked to yesterday within the firearms industry said they would not be surprised to see Colt re-enter the civilian market at some point. Couldn't predict when that might be, but anybody who tells you that this was some sort of, anti-gun move, as one person told me yesterday, this is not Colt pulling a Walmart or a Dick's. This is, again, it's not about messaging or appearing to be woke or taking an anti-gun position. It's about Colt's bottom line. All right, so let's get to today's Armed Citizen story. Let's get to our good deed of the day. And let's start with a story from the failed criminal justice system, this time in the state of Massachusetts, which we are told has some of the best gun laws on the books. Yeah. Well, a individual who was shot and killed in Dorchester in Boston, Massachusetts. Someone's been arrested for that crime. And as it turns out, this individual, well known to law enforcement. Matter of fact, so well known to law enforcement that it was back in June when this guy was given probation for a weapons offense. Now, New England Cable News says the victim in this shooting, identified as 25-year-old Marcus Dunn Gordon of Randolph, Massachusetts. He was found lying in the lobby of the Ramada by Wyndham Boston in Dorchester late Monday night. Died of his injuries at a local hospital. The suspect, 25-year-old Brian Joyce of Dorchester, was arrested in Manchester, New Hampshire, Wednesday evening. And according to the Boston Globe, this suspect, again, was on probation following a conviction for illegal gun possession back in June of this year. Yeah, just a few short months ago. So again, we're told by all kinds of gun control advocates, oh, Massachusetts has the best gun laws in the books. Oh my gosh. You know what Massachusetts gun laws do? They reduce the number of legal gun owners in the state of Massachusetts. That's what they do. Violent criminals, like this guy suspected of murder on Monday night, Brian Joyce, well, when he gets caught in illegal possession of a firearm, what happens to a guy like Brian Joyce? He gets a slap on the wrist, he gets sent on his way, given probation, and again, now stands accused of a much, much more serious crime. In Rock Hill, South Carolina, concealed carry holder ended up saving the day when a guy in a truck went on a rampage in a retail parking lot. This was in Fort Mill, South Carolina. And a guy driving a black truck, still don't know why this happened, but just starts running into cars in this strip mall parking lot, slamming into 3 or 4 cars. One person ended up getting pinned between 2 vehicles, had to be saved by police. Now, it turns out there was a concealed carry holder who was in one of those cars that was getting hit. He got out. He didn't fire a shot at the guy. He ended up whacking him in the head with his pistol and subduing him. He was laying on the ground when police arrived a couple minutes later. Now, police originally got a call about a guy with a gun. So when they show up, they see the concealed carry holder. They tell him, put your gun on the ground. He complies with officer's order. After a brief period of time, they figure out what's going on here. He's released. He's not facing any charges. The suspect in this case, taken to the hospital because of the lump on his head, and he is going to be facing a string of charges once he is released from that hospital. Now, our good deed of the day, I got to say, I love this story. From Arkansas, and this comes from Fox 16 in Arkansas. Lonoke, Arkansas, I believe it's how you pronounce it. I lived in Fort Smith, Arkansas for a couple of years, but I've never heard of Lonoke. I don't think it's Lonoke. I'm just going to go with Lonoke. Lonoke, Arkansas. School resource officer there, Lieutenant Malcolm Cole. He was outside of the school. He was running an errand. He was headed back to campus the other day when he ran across an individual who he's met before. He's had some interactions with. It looked like this guy was having some trouble. He was in a wheelchair, and he was stopped in the road. Lieutenant Cole asked him, "What can I do for you?" And he said, "Oh, I'll be all right." Lieutenant Cole, "Nah, I don't think so." Again, he knows this individual, says he's very active, likes to be outside. The guy's battery on his electric wheelchair had died. And Malcolm Cole said, "Look, I can't leave you out here. It's just way too hot." He says, so I just started pushing him. The moment was seen by a individual inside of a hair salon in Lonoke. Courtney Thrift says, we were just working and this police officer had his blue lights on right in front of the salon. And I was like, what's he doing? Well, that's what he was doing. She said, she snapped a picture, said, I'm going to put this on social media because I just want to show the kindness that is normal in Lonoke. Meanwhile, Lieutenant Malcolm Cole says, I don't necessarily feel like I did anything special. I'd seen somebody that needed some help. He says it was a pleasure to help him. As a matter of fact, Malcolm Cole, lieutenant there in Lenoke, Arkansas, has gone back to check on the gentleman in question. Says he's doing fine. Says he's actually going to get a new wheelchair next week. So hopefully this won't happen again. Fox 16 says they tried to find that gentleman, went to Lenoke to talk to him. Couldn't. They said, true to form, he was out and about. So I'm glad to know that that gentleman is still very much mobile. Glad to know that in the right place at the right time, willing and able to do the right thing. Lieutenant Malcolm Cole there in Lenoke, Arkansas, exercising his right to conduct a good deed. And that is going to do it for this edition of Bearing Arms Cam and Company. Rest up, because next week could get kind of hairy. It could also not get hairy. It should be noted that next week could come and go, and we won't hear anything from the White House or the president in terms of gun control. But I'm guessing that we will hear something. And if we don't hear something from President Trump in the White House, darn well we're going to be hearing from anti-gun lawmakers in Washington, D.C., and we'll have that for you as well in the next Cam and Company. Have yourself a fantastic weekend. By the way, if you want to get the program in podcast form, you can find it at Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, Stitcher, townhall.com podcast. You can subscribe to Town Hall Media, and you can watch the show on YouTube each and every day. We do appreciate you being a part of the program. You can always send questions, comments via email, cam.edwards@bearingarms.com, and Cam Edwards @Cam Edwards on Twitter. Have a great weekend. We'll see you here soon with another edition of Bearing Arms, Cam and Company.